What's up, everybody? Justin here to do a new Year in Wrestling 1984 Part 1 Reloaded. Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1984. So a lot of stuff happened in 1984 that was good for wrestling. That it was starting to break out. It was getting on cable TV. It was starting to become big. And it would only get bigger and bigger in the late 80s. First, I'm representing my Hulkamania shirt and this bandana. Representing because in the beginning of 1984, in January, Hulk Hogan returned to the company, returned to the WWF on, I said in my last Year in Wrestling Reloaded video, 1983, either on part 1 or 2, I said Hogan came back in December 1983. He actually made his return to television in St. Louis on December 27th, 1983, and he defeated some jobber. And then on January 7th, 1984 episode of Championship Wrestling, Hulk Hogan confirmed his fan favorite status for the WWF fans by saving Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund is being triple teamed by the Wild Samoans, and then Hogan's turn was explained by Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund said in an interview he changed his ways, that he's a great man. He's told me he's not going to have Blassie around anymore because Classy Freddie Blassie was Hogan's manager in the WWF from 1979 to 1980. And then Hogan left WWF, or he was fired by Vince McMahon Sr. I think he was actually fired because he told Vince McMahon Sr., I'm going to go do Rocky 3, and Vince McMahon Sr. did not think he should do Rocky 3 and didn't think wrestlers should be able to do outside projects. I don't know. But then after 79 to 1980, his WWF run, Hogan went to New Japan Pro Wrestling for like 4 or 5 years. Or not 4 or 5 years, a couple years. Then he went to the AWA. And as I said, December 1983, Vince McMahon Jr. was in power. He bought the company from his father. Vince McMahon Jr. handpicked Hulk Hogan as the guy, as a franchise of his company, and brought him back in December 83. So then on TV, as I said, on January 7th, 84, it was explained Hogan came back and he's now babyface. Because originally in the WWF, he was a heel. So then, on January, 3 weeks later, after January 7th, 3 weeks later, January 23rd, 1984, history was made. Hulkamania was born. In Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan challenged the Iron Sheik for the championship, WWE Championship, or WWF Championship at the time. So Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik on January 23rd, 84, and Hulkamania was born. Madison Square Garden exploded. They loved Hogan. And they popped big time for Hogan, winning the championship, defeating the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik only had the title for about a month. That's pretty sad, but that's a fact. So then, as I said, Iron Sheik won the title from Bob Backlund. A month later, Iron Sheik dropped it to Hulk Hogan on January 23rd in Madison Square Garden. January 23rd, 1984, Hulkamania was born in the WWF. Even though Hulkamania was already running wild in the AWA. So now I'm going to read some news items about the WWF in their expansion in 1984 and going on and getting on cable television. So cable television, as I said, expanded wrestling big time, made more fans see it that never saw their companies before, like the NWA, like WWF. So Vince McMahon Jr. set up the WWF All-American Wrestling, which debuted in late 1983 on the USA Network on Sunday mornings. Network television was no longer interested that much in professional wrestling, but the national availability of cable television backed all the way television going back to the 1950s was the golden age of wrestling. So Vince McMahon Jr., I'm reading a lot of news about 1984 and what happened, because I don't know it off the top of my head, all this. I wasn't even 1 year old yet in 1984. I wasn't 1 year old till July 1984. So how could I know all this? So Vince McMahon started aggressively strategizing and acquiring talent from the other wrestling organizations, and basically that's what he did. First and foremost, he acquired his top talent, Hulk Hogan, from the AWA. The influx of talent in 1984 also included wrestling mainstays like Rowdy Piper, Greg Valentine, Bob Orton, Mike Rotundo, David Schultz, Ken Patera, Junkyard Dog, Mean Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan, Jesse Ventura. They all came to the WWF from AWA, and Junkyard Dog came from Mid-South Wrestling, and a lot of other talent came from other companies because there was territories. There were many territories still in 84. And there was, the NWA was a big company. They had Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors. They had the Rock and Roll Express was in NWA in 84, but they would come later. So you had the NWA, you had the WWF, and you had the AWA. Three major companies, but the AWA was losing all their talent, probably because Vern Gagne was an idiot and didn't want to challenge Vince McMahon and try to keep his talent and pay them a little bit more. They didn't want to stay with Vern Gagne because they saw the grass was a lot greener on the side of being with the WWF. They saw they could make more money. They probably had to travel more, but they could make way more money. And Vern Gagne did not, in my opinion, the guy didn't have the vision. He didn't have the vision for where to bring the business and to make it worldwide and global. Vern Gagne did not see that. I don't think Vern Gagne cared if the AWA was worldwide. He was just happy going to Canada and the United States and making good money, touring the United States and Canada. But Vince McMahon Jr. had a vision. The guy had a major vision. And the guy is a genius for taking all this different talent and putting it in his company, because he needed all this talent. So, what else is here? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to read about 1984. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll just talk about, as I said, I already talked about some of the talent. Vince McMahon Jr., you could say he stole the talent, but the other promoters could have tried to fight Vince. Could have tried to actually fight Vince and keep their talent, but they didn't care to. They didn't care to fight Vince back. They were just angry at Vince. And promoters were calling up, I guess, Vince McMahon Sr. They're calling him up, telling him, your son, what is your son doing? He's killing the business. I'm going to beat the crap out of your son if I see him. I'm going to kill him. Stuff like that. There are a lot of threats to Vince McMahon Jr. because a lot of the promoters did not like what he was trying to do. They didn't like his vision. They were just angry. In my opinion, they were jealous. They're jealous and they are stupid for not fighting Vince in the WWF back. The only person that really didn't give in to Vince and cave in was the NWA. And Jim Crockett Promotions did not really give in to Vince. They fought him back. They tried to compete with him, and they did compete. But then Ted Turner in TBS, they had Georgia Championship Wrestling before the NWA. It's a long story. Anyways, it was sometime in July 1984. It was July 14th. I'll talk about this right now. July 14th, 1984, Ted Turner owned TBS, I think TNT, and CNN. But TBS had wrestling. They had Georgia Championship Wrestling. And then later they'd get the NWA, and WCW. NWA would become WCW Saturday Night eventually. So July 14th, 1984, this was big. This was big news. It's still unreal to me that Vince actually got his company, WWF, he actually got them on TBS for like 1 week, I think. Or maybe a couple weeks. July 14th, 84, the WWF takes over the NWA's airtime on the superstation TBS. World Championship Wrestling. Hundreds of calls and complaints were received, to which WWF head Vince McMahon responds in an Atlanta news article. We'll show those complainers the difference between a major league and a minor league production. And then he says, given time, NWA Wrestling is quickly reinstated. NWA is reinstated on TBS on Saturday mornings and returns to Saturday evening time slot about 9 months later. So this, when did that happen? The date, I guess it was July 14th. Anyways, it's called Black Saturday. Vince McMahon came on TBS, cut a short promo, said, thank you, the WWF's here on TBS, thank you, and you're going to see the best wrestling action, stuff like that. And then Ted Turner, they had a contract, Vince and Ted Turner had a contract. Ted Turner wanted the WWF and Vince McMahon, he wanted them in a small little studio in Atlanta to shoot a new wrestling show every single week, live wrestling, new matches, new wrestling every week. Instead, Vince outsmarted Ted Turner, and instead Vince just showed a taped, I think it was from USA Network or something, or All American Wrestling or something. Vince showed a taped show of the WWF on TBS. He showed all his stars from the WWF, and he showed guys like Junkyard Dog, Iron Sheik, and a lot of wrestlers that fans probably saw from around the country before on TBS, and then now they saw those wrestlers in the WWF. So Vince getting on TBS was a damn smart move by him, because it gave him a bigger audience. He was already on USA Network, he got on TBS. A lot of new fans, probably especially in Atlanta in the South, got to see the WWF, and maybe they became fans of it. So, in my opinion, Vince outsmarted Ted Turner. And then Ted Turner was pissed because he said, Vince, you broke the contract. You're not delivering live wrestling in the little Atlanta TV studio. And then Ted Turner wanted out of the contract. He wanted out of it. And he got out of it. So I'm trying to find that. It's a news item. So I know it happened in '84. So yeah, July 14th, 1984, in which would become known as Black Saturday, Vince McMahon acquired, here's the backstory, Vince McMahon acquired Georgia Championship Wrestling along with its national TBS Saturday night television time slot. Georgia Championship Wrestling had been owned by the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry, along with 3 other stockholders. McMahon set up a highlight show. As I said, it was a tape show, but whatever, highlight show. Vince set up a highlight show which angered TBS, who expected original programming. The ratings were so poor, so I guess the fans of the Superstation didn't like the WWF. The ratings were so poor, and the fans did not appreciate the change. In the end, Vince McMahon sold the television time slot to Jim Crockett, who returned NWA programming to TBS. So there it is. It was Black Saturday on July 14th, 84. Now I'm going to talk about some other news items. Or I'll talk about the talent that Vince signed from other companies. You could say he stole them, but whatever. I think Vince had a vision and was a genius. In 84, he had a vision, he was a genius, and he just wanted the best talent from around the country. He wanted the best talent in his company, and it worked. It really paid off big time and worked. So in 84, Vince got guys like Bobby Heenan, Mean Gene Okerlund. And Mean Gene and Bobby Heenan, they were in the AWA earlier for like 10 years already. Jesse the Body Ventura, he came along in the WWF, and he was, in my opinion, he was always a lousy wrestler. But Jesse Ventura, Vince put him on commentary, and that was a great idea. That was a genius idea, to team up Jesse Ventura with Gorilla Monsoon. And they would go on to call the first ever WrestleMania. Actually, they would go on to call the first WrestleMania in the 6 in a row. 6 WrestleManias in a row, Jesse Ventura, Gorilla Monsoon would call. So Greg Valentine, WWF got. Paul Orndorff they got. Rowdy Piper they got. And he was just at Starrcade 83. But WWF and Vince signed him. Because Vince was smart. Vince knew he needed a great heel to work with Hogan and feud with Hogan, and it was classic. It was great stuff having Rowdy Piper and Hogan feud up until WrestleMania 1. And then they would also have the War to Settle the Score on MTV. So you got Paul Orndorff, Rowdy Piper, Greg Valentine, Bobby Heenan, Jesse Ventura, Mean Gene Okerlund, Big John Studd, Junkyard Dog, Bob Orton Jr., the Iron Sheik. Oh, he was around already in 83 in the WWF. Also, TNT in 1984, Tuesday Night Titans, also started and went on USA Network. And that was a pretty groundbreaking show in my opinion. So here are some news items from 1984 that I'm going to talk about. On February 7th, Dynamite Kid defeated the Cobra in Tokyo, Japan to win the vacated WWF Junior Heavyweight title. I don't know why WWF thought they needed a Junior Heavyweight title. It's like a Cruiserweight title, basically. But I don't know why WWF and Vince thought they needed a Junior title. Just because Tiger Mask was in New Japan, and New Japan Pro Wrestling had a lot of light heavyweights. So I guess Vince thought he needed a Junior Heavyweight title to compete with what Japan was doing. That was kind of stupid because, yes, the talent was good. WWF had Dynamite Kid, and they had a guy called the Cobra who wore a mask, and he was a pretty damn good wrestler and talent, but they didn't have many other cruiserweights. And our Junior junior heavyweight title eventually went away. Before, like, I believe is gone by 86. So Dynamite Kid defeated the Cobra. And then the Dynamite Kid beats his partner, the British Bulldog, in the semifinals, which is considered one of the greatest junior heavyweight tournament, or considered one of the greatest junior heavyweight tournaments in wrestling history. So I didn't know that Dynamite Kid took on British Bulldog. I'm sure that was a classic in 84 on February 7th. So now March, there's no date on this, but it just says March 84. Ric Flair and Harley Race exchanged the NWA World Title in a prior match in prior matches never acknowledged at the time by the NWA. Race defeats Flair on March 21st in New Zealand, while Flair regains the title on March 23rd in Singapore. The title changes were finally recognized by the NWA in the 1990s as official. So now April. Again, it doesn't have a date. It just says April. Japan-based WWF is formed at the time, featuring such stars as, I cannot read their names. Anyways, the UWF was formed in Japan. I'm sure it's a great company. I don't know when they went under or out of business. I don't know that. April 6th, 1984. Ken Patera and Mr. Saito throw a third. This is when Ken Patera, I believe, was arrested. And I believe put in jail for like 1 or 2 years. Or 3 years maybe. So Ken Patera, the guy's probably drunk out of his mind. Probably didn't know what he's doing. Just acting like a stupid idiot. And Ken Patera was with Mr. Saito. They threw a 30-pound boulder through the window of a McDonald's. And this is even the weirder part, because I live in Wisconsin. So they throw a boulder through the window of a McDonald's, and the McDonald's is in Waukesha, Wisconsin. When they were refused service after hours, so they threw a boulder through the window. How stupid. A brawl with Waukesha police officers takes place shortly afterwards at the Holiday Inn where Patera and Saito are staying. So I guess they went to their hotel, the cops, and Saito, pretty damn tough guy, or he looked tough. Thing is, Mr. Saito, the guy looked pretty damn tough. And Ken Patera also looked pretty damn tough. So the cops came and probably knocked on their hotel room door, and 2 big-ass wrestlers jump out, and I probably started attacking the cops. So that's crazy. And eventually, I believe Ken Patera served prison time for like 2 or 3 years. And I don't know how long Mr. Saito was in jail. Mr. Saito was probably just thrown out of the United States and couldn't come back probably for 5 years. He's probably kicked out of the country. So April 25th, 84, Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen win the All Japan tournament to crown the first PWF Tag Team Champions. If you don't know what All Japan was, it was called All Japan Pro Wrestling. And then their competitors were like New Japan. I think they worked together for a little bit, but then they became characters. Not characters, they became competitors. What am I talking about? May 29th, and I'm going to read these news items up until July. May 29th, the first card for NWA Wrestling in the New York area in 20 years, dubbed the Night of Champions, is held in New Jersey's Meadowlands Arena. So good for the NWA. June 14th, Antonio Inoki defeats Hulk Hogan to win the IWGP Heavyweight title. June 14th. That's when Hogan was still part of WWF. And Hogan was actually WWF champion and still IWGP champion at the same time. But on June 14th, Antonio Inoki defeated Hogan to win the IWGP title. And Inoki would become the second ever IWGP champion. Now I'm going to review the first ever David Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions event at Texas Stadium on May 6th, 1984. Johnny Mantell defeated Kelly Kaniski. They wrestled to a draw. The Junkyard Dog defeated the Missing Link. So I guess the Junkyard Dog wasn't in WWF until after May 6th, because he wrestled at the first ever David Von Erich Parade of Champions. Junkyard Dog defeated the Missing Link by disqualification. Iceman King Parsons and Buck Zumoff defeated the Super Destroyers, Fritz Von Erich. Fritz, Kevin, and Mike Von Erich defeated world-class six-man champions, the Freebirds, for the titles. So it looks like Fritz came out of retirement. That was pretty pointless. But I understand why they put all the Von Erichs on this show. It was a tribute to David Von Erich. But Fritz was like, the guy is way past his prime. He shouldn't have been a six-man tag champion. That was a stupid idea. But I guess the Von Erichs had to go over because they were super over. So up next we had Kobashi defeat Kamala. Butch Reed defeated Chris Donovan, or Chick Donovan. That's the guy's name. Okay. Chris Adams and Sunshine. Sunshine was a blonde-haired woman manager. I believe she's pretty attractive. I don't really remember what she looks like, but I think she was attractive. So Chris Adams and Sunshine defeated Jimmy Garvin and Precious. That was a good feud in World Class. Kerry Von Erich. Kerry Von Erich, who would later become the Texas Tornado in WWF in 1990. Kerry Von Erich defeated NWA World Champion Ric Flair to win the title. And then a week later, he would drop it in Japan to Ric Flair. My thoughts on Kerry Von Erich as NWA champion. It got a great pop. It got a great reaction. The Von Erichs all came in the ring and celebrated with Kerry. They were hugging him. They were lifting him up on their shoulders. The Von Erichs were all emotional. And they should have been, because Dave Von Erich passed away. The guy's a great worker. David Von Erich was a great worker. And in my opinion, the guy would have been an NWA World Champion. David Von Erich was a damn good worker. Ric Flair even said that David Von Erich would have been champion, and Flair would have probably dropped it to David Von Erich, but instead he had to drop it to Kerry Von Erich, because sadly David Von Erich passed away in Japan, I believe. I think it was in Japan. I know David Von Erich had said he had a stomach ache, a really bad stomach ache, and then I think he went to sleep, and the guy never woke up. He passed away. So that was the first annual David Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions event from Texas Stadium on May 6th, 84. It was a pretty damn good event. And there were a lot of people there, probably 30,000 or maybe more. So this ends part one of the Year in Wrestling Reloaded 1984, part one. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't know how long I went. Looks like I went 29 minutes. Part two will be a lot shorter. Part two of Year in Wrestling Reloaded 84, I will talk about Starrcade 84. And some other news items from 1984. Hope you enjoyed Year in Wrestling 1984 Part 1. Follow me on Twitter, And like, comment, share, and subscribe. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.